There is a silent exhaustion in trying to be interesting. We live like actors trapped on an inner stage, observing every gesture, every word, afraid of not being enough, of not being remembered. But what would happen if, for just a moment, you stopped watching yourself? If instead of worrying about the image you project, you simply existed fully, without trying to be anything other than what you already are? Alan Watts used to say that life is not a problem to be solved, but an experience to be lived. And perhaps the same is true for how we relate to one another. While we're busy trying to seem alive, we forget to live. While we're trying to impress, we forget to be present. Do you remember the last time you met someone unforgettable? It wasn't their eloquence, nor their looks that struck you. It was their presence. There was something about them that made you feel more alive, as if standing before that person, time slowed down, and you remembered who you were before you ever felt the need to prove anything. What if the secret to being remembered was simply this: to stop trying to be remembered? Today, in this video, we're going to walk together through that paradox, that true magnetism arises only when we stop worrying about attracting. If this theme resonates with something inside you, leave a comment below. I'm truly listening, and let's begin this deep listening together. Chapter 1. The Myth of Impression. From an early age, we're trained to construct an image, a socially acceptable reflection of who we think we need to be. We learn that being seen is synonymous with being worth something. So we carry around a collection of gestures, phrases, and masks, believing that the more we shine, the more we'll be remembered. But the soul, quiet and patient, has no interest in performance. It longs for presence. We live in a world where almost everyone is shouting, "Look at me," but very few have the courage to say, "I see you." Alan Watts used to say that when we try to grasp life, it slips through our fingers like water. And maybe the same is true for the desire to be admired. The harder we try to impress, the farther we drift from the authenticity that truly captivates. Think about the last time you walked into a room and felt like you had to prove something. Your body tensed, your voice changed, and a part of you began watching yourself, judging every word. That is the burden of performative self-consciousness, the constant effort to be someone in the eyes of others. But who is that someone? A character molded by the fear of not being enough. And here lies the paradox. The most magnetic person is not the one trying to draw attention, but the one who's forgotten to try. They don't try to be interesting, they're interested. They don't seek applause, they seek truth. Their presence carries the weight of the real. While most are busy projecting a version of themselves, they simply are. The people who truly move us don't enchant us with what they show, but with what they awaken in us. They return to us something we'd forgotten, an ancient spark, a memory of wholeness. And that's why they stay in our minds. Not because they mastered a technique, but because they stopped fighting their own nature. At its core, being unforgettable is the byproduct of sincerity. It's the natural effect of someone who isn't trying to be anything. It's the beauty of a flame that doesn't strive to shine. It simply burns. Chapter 2. The shift from anxious self-consciousness to radical attention. There is an invisible prison where many live without realizing it, the confinement of their own mind. It manifests in the quiet, repetitive questions that echo within. Am I being interesting? Did I say something wrong? Do they think I'm strange, boring, or out of place? Alan Watts called this the illusion of the observing self, that inner character who believes it can control everything all the time, turning every human encounter into a sort of exam. But the more we watch ourselves, the less we are. And when we're not there, we stop living the moment. Imagine an actor so worried about remembering their lines that they forget to feel the scene. Their presence vanishes, and the audience, without knowing why, feels the emptiness. The same happens to us. When we're trapped in anxious self-consciousness, others can sense, even unconsciously, that we're not truly there. We become an echo of ourselves, a tired image pretending to be alive. The turning point comes when we shift our focus from self-observation to radical attention. We stop asking, "How am I being perceived?" and start asking, "What's alive here right now?" In that simple shift, something opens. The energy that once fueled fear begins to feed presence. You can experience this right now. Close your eyes for a moment and notice what happens inside you when judgment ceases. Feel the silence between your thoughts. That brief interval is the space where true listening is born. It's where the soul breathes. Radical attention is like a beam of light that stops pointing at the mirror and turns toward the horizon. Suddenly, the other person is no longer a threat. They become a universe to be discovered. And the curious thing is that when you're genuinely interested, fear disappears, because fear cannot survive in the presence of curiosity. This is the essential shift, to stop guarding your own reflection and begin to truly see the world. It's not a technique, it's an act of freedom. It's the moment when consciousness stops folding in on itself and opens, like a window that finally lets the wind in. Chapter 3. Seeing the universe in the other. Alan Watts used to say that you are not merely looking at another person, you are looking at another expression of the universe. And perhaps that is one of the most liberating realizations we can ever have. Every human being carries within them an entire cosmos, memories, fears, hopes, stories that no one else will ever live. Yet we almost never see this. We are so trapped in the mirror of the self that we pass by others as if they were shadows crossing our path. When attention stops being self-centered and becomes genuine curiosity, the other reveals themselves as something sacred. No longer a secondary character in our story, but a parallel universe inviting us to expand our perception. That's where true enchantment is born. Not because you're trying to make an impression, but because for the first time, you're truly seeing. In neuroscience, there's something profoundly symbolic about this. When we feel truly heard, our brain releases oxytocin, the molecule of trust, the same hormone that connects a mother and her child. But that chemistry only happens in the presence of authenticity. The body knows when interest is real. The human gaze can tell, even without words, whether attention is pure or calculated. The soul can feel it. So when you offer listening without demand, something miraculous happens. The other person relaxes, their defenses drop. They begin to show who they truly are, not to please you, but because for the first time they feel safe. And in that instant, an invisible bridge forms between two worlds. Your presence becomes a mirror, and the other becomes a living reflection of being itself. Try a small experiment. In your next conversation, forget yourself for 5 minutes. Don't analyze, don't plan responses, just be. Look into their eyes, breathe together, listen to the silence between the words. Notice what vibrates beyond sound. Perhaps a hidden fear, a quiet tenderness, an old hope. That's where the soul resides. And when you truly see someone, that vision transforms you as well, because seeing the universe in another is realizing that you are part of the same fabric. It is life recognizing itself through you. Chapter 4. Presence is not passivity. Boundaries, clarity, and flow. There is a subtle misunderstanding that arises whenever we speak about presence. Many people believe that being fully present means becoming passive, someone who merely observes, accepts everything without discernment. But that is not presence. That is absence. True presence is not blind surrender, it is living lucidity. It is the gaze that welcomes and at the same time sees clearly what needs to be named. Alan Watts used to say that life is like playing an instrument. You don't need to control every note, but to be in tune enough to follow the music. Being present is exactly that, not controlling the rhythm, but responding to what arises with sensitivity and precision. When you let go of anxious self-consciousness, you don't become overly vulnerable, you become surprisingly grounded, because clarity is not born from control, it is born from connection. Think of a master swordsman. He doesn't win the duel because he's obsessed with victory, but because he's completely attentive to every movement, every breath of the moment. The instant he thinks, "Am I doing well?" that's when the strike lands. The same happens to us in relationships. The thought, "I need to look strong," makes us rigid, and rigidity breaks. The fluidity of presence, however, is like water. It bends, it understands, but it doesn't submit. Being present doesn't mean accepting what harms you. It means perceiving clearly what harms you and acting from that awareness. You don't become a passive mirror, but a field of active perception. That's where boundaries arise naturally, not as imposed rules. You know when to step away without anger, when to say no without guilt, when to remain silent without fear, because your actions flow from what's real, not from reflection. And the more present you are, the more others feel safe around you. There's no need to pretend or to dominate. Authenticity becomes the true center of gravity. Let this thought stay with you. Control is born of fear, but clarity is born of listening. And every time you listen deeply, life reveals the next step, without effort, without strategy, only with truth. In the comments, share, in what moments do you find yourself confusing presence with passivity? That reflection might open the space for your own quiet strength. Chapter 5. Practices for becoming a mirror of essence. Being a mirror of essence is not a talent reserved for a few. It's a natural quality that emerges when we stop trying to be something and simply are. But for this presence to blossom in everyday life, we need to cultivate a way of seeing that looks beyond appearances. Jung once said, "What you resist persists, what you look at transforms." These practices are ways of seeing. The first is silent observation of the inner monitor. During a conversation, notice how often the judging voice appears. Do I sound smart enough? Do they like me? Don't fight that voice. Just notice it. When observed, it loses its power, like fog dissolving under the sunlight of awareness. The second practice is shifting the mind's focus to the body. Notice the micro-expressions, the tone of voice, the rhythm of the other person's breathing. The body of the other is a sacred text that reveals more than words ever can. When you read it with genuine curiosity, the conversation turns into communion. The third is deep listening, not just to words, but to the energy beneath them. Ask yourself, what is this person really trying to express, even without saying it? Sometimes, the silence between two sentences carries more truth than the entire speech. The fourth is presence journaling. After each meaningful encounter, write 3 lines. What did I experience in the other? What opened within me? Where did I still try to control the outcome? This intimate writing roots awareness into your daily life. Lastly, there is a visualization inspired by Alan Watts. Close your eyes and imagine yourself as the space in which the conversation unfolds. You're not the voice, nor the body, nor the thought. You are the field in which all of it arises and dissolves. Feel the lightness in that. The mind tries to control, being simply observes. With time, something changes. People begin to feel at peace around you, not because you say the right words, but because they feel seen, and that is rare. In truth, it's the secret language of the soul, recognizing another soul. Conclusion: the art of being unforgettable without trying. In the end, it all comes down to a simple shift, from the fear of not being seen to the love of seeing. Those who become unforgettable don't seek a stage. They seek presence. They don't try to be remembered. They remind others of themselves. And that's why they remain, even after the silence, even after the goodbye. Alan Watts said, "The separation between you and the other is an illusion maintained by thought." When you stop living as if you're being watched, something in you expands. You begin to realize that you're not inside the scene. You are the scene unfolding. And in that realization, the need for control dissolves. True magnetism doesn't come from effort, but from truth. It blooms when the heart is unguarded, curious, alive. When you look at someone and say, even in silence, "I see you," that phrase changes everything. It creates a field of trust where both remember their shared humanity. So in your next conversation, try forgetting yourself for 5 minutes. Observe, feel, breathe together. See the universe that lives within the gaze before you, and notice what awakens inside you. Because being unforgettable isn't about leaving marks on someone. It's about leaving them more whole than they were before they met you. If this video touched something in you, leave in the comments, "I choose to see with presence." And remember to subscribe to the Inner Sanctuary channel to continue this journey of self-awareness and consciousness.